Take 7. Is your life kinda complicated? Welcome to One Take, the podcast designed to seek wisdom to live simple, healthy, and happy. We'll get there one take at a time. I'm your host, Yezmin Thomas. And welcome to Take 7 of One Take, the podcast. I am your host, Yezmin Thomas, and thank you so much for joining me. I am extremely happy that you've chosen to be with us today. Today, we will hear from Susy Solis. She is president of Solis Media Strategies. I'll tell you a little bit about her before we let her tell us more about her. Susy Solis is a bilingual journalist. She has more than a decade of broadcasting experience. And after forging herself a successful career as a television news and television reporter in top markets, including Dallas, Susy decided to chase her dream and become an entrepreneur. In 2014, she decided to quit her job. She founded Solis Media Strategies, and she now spends her days and makes a living helping companies and businesses discover their message and present it to the world. But before we dive into this conversation with Susy, I wanted to make a parenthesis to talk to you guys why she is on the air with us today. There's a reason why I pick the people that I pick. Besides having a great story of entrepreneurship to share, this is one of the reasons why she's on the air today. I wanted to showcase her because before One Take was even a thought, she was already a supporter of this idea. I have known Susy for many years, and although we had not been in touch for a long time, I ran into her a few months ago at this event, and I told her about this idea that I had. And since she had gone on her own and she founded her own company, I wanted to share this idea with her. And at the time, I couldn't really explain to her what I wanted to do. This was, the idea of the podcast was really green. I don't think I had an idea of the podcast yet. What I wanted to do was create content to inspire people. And when you share that with people, they're going to go like, okay. But what she told me was this: if this idea is keeping you up at night, you have to do it. And this is a comment that I've shared with you guys in earlier episodes. And she offered the support. She offered to me her support. And most importantly, she shared her enthusiasm. And guys, that's priceless. When you are sharing with people that you respect ideas and you receive back interest and enthusiasm, that's basically all you need. Those are the ingredients to keep the recipe for the success of your idea to make it happen. That's the little input that you need from people to keep it moving. And you have no idea how so many people have inspired me to make this happen. Some of them I know personally. They are great friends of mine. These are friends that I share an idea with them and they offer their help. Some of my friends from work, one of them, he took the pictures for my blog and the podcast cover. Another friend of mine, he's going to do another shoot with me to get me more pictures for my bio and, other things that I need to get done on the image side. These are people that are telling me, I like what you're doing. What can I do to help? They're not charging me a cent, They're not doing this because they're going to get something out of it. They're doing this because within their means, they want to be able to help. And that, guys, that's extremely important. That's really, who your friends are when they do that, Sometimes you don't realize how great of a friend you have. Sometimes we take people for granted. And I want to take this opportunity to thank those guys. And I'm not going to mention their names because I don't want to put them on the spot. but they know who they are, and they need to know that I appreciate every moment that I spend with them and all the help that they've provided. I appreciate it. Like I was saying, some of them that have supported me, I know them personally. I work with some of them. Some of them are my close friends. Some other people that have made this possible, they don't even know me. But I feel like I know them because I listen to their podcasts so much, or I read their blogs, and they offer valuable information that help me through the process to make this podcast a reality. If you guys are familiar with Pat Flynn, if you ask me how to make a podcast, I would tell you, go watch on YouTube, go watch his tutorial series. I think it's a series of 6 videos that I followed step by step by step to be able to publish my first episode. And I go back to them still when I have questions, when I don't remember exactly how to do one step or the other. I go back to those tutorials, and I'll link those resources to the podcast blog post for episode number 7. So it is also the information that you put out there that sometimes you don't know, but it's making a difference. There's also friends that you don't really know in person, but you want to call them that because they've shared that fellowship with you. I want to take a minute and acknowledge and send a special shout out to Chris Michael Harris. He is a serial entrepreneur, and he's host of Entrepreneur Hour. It's a podcast. And we exchanged a couple of messages on Twitter. We connected randomly, exchanged a couple messages on Twitter. He basically ended up giving me a lot of insight on the making of the podcast, how to make it a success, how to reach out to the influencers in my area of focus with the podcast. He has now connected me with a great group on Facebook of fellow podcasters. He invited me to be a featured guest on his show. And why? Guys, why? I wonder why, really. That question I am going to ask him, as he has also accepted an invitation to be featured on my show. But, it's people like that go out of their way to help you without really getting anything in return, who you really need to surround yourself with. You will identify those people and hold on to those people. Those people are going to be a good influence in your life. And I want to be one of those persons for you. You may be listening to this and you don't know me, but I want to offer to you my help. You can send me an email. You can connect with me on Twitter if you're having doubts about whatever you're doing. Another of my friends, Christy Kilgore, she's my profile interview for episode 3, take 3. She's been telling me how she might be interested in doing a podcast. She wants to do more of the blogging, and she's been writing more on her blog, and I'll also put a link to it on the blog post for this episode. I'm like, Christy, you can do it. I didn't know anything about podcasting. Yes, it helps that I come from a broadcasting background. It does help, but podcasting is a little different, and it has a process of its own. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. And if you are interested, it's funny because after doing this podcast, at least 4 or 5 people have told me that they're inspired and they would like at some point do their own podcast. Do it. And if you need help, reach out to me. I would like to help you guys. And if you need guests for your show, whoever you are that you are listening to now, if you want to have me as a featured guest on your show, please reach out to me. Send me a Twitter message, and later on I'll give you all the details on how to reach me. Send me an email, send me a Facebook comment, whatever it is, just reach out to me. Because if your message aligns with my message and my values, I can tell you the answer is yes. I would love to be on your podcast. As long as it aligns with my message and my personal values, I am going to support you. And it's funny because since I put out the first episode, I have had a lot of support. You guys have given me compliments that really turn me up. You've given me compliments like this. What you're doing is impressive. These are quotes. This really talented girl that I work with, she told me, I heard that you are a media mogul. And I was just laughing, but that was to me the nicest compliment, a media mogul, because I have a podcast. That was amazing to hear. Another one, they wrote, this person that I really, really respect, he wrote a review for my podcast. And one of the things he said, that it was a masterpiece. I was like, what? Really? Somebody thinks that of me? Wow, guys. This is really more than I expected. I was reaching out to people to write me an honest review about the podcast. But for someone to say that, it's overwhelming. And these are people that I highly respect and I appreciate. And I want you all to know that I'm very thankful that you took the time, and I am grateful to know that this effort is making an impact in you. I just wanted to share that with you guys because I want you to hold on to the people that will support you, even those who don't know you, okay? Because there's people that don't know you, but they hear your message and they will support you because of your message. And that, I gave you the example of Chris earlier today. And there's always those people that will also reply to you with a message like this one I am about to share with you guys. This one I consider some of the most inspiring feedback that I've gotten, and you will hear why. So I reached out to my friend Charlie, who lives in Mexico, and he's been my best friend since college. And let's define friendship, guys, because this is a guy that I don't see very often. We don't talk very often. I have my life here. He has his life there. But we built a great friendship relationship when we were in college. And whenever I have a chance to go back to Mexico, and whenever we happen to be in the same city and we can grab dinner or lunch, we have a blast. So I sent him my podcast, and I asked him for his feedback. And he just filled me with joy. You guys listen to this. This is what he told me. Hey, I'm listening to Take 5. Honestly, wow, congratulations. The funniest part is it's almost like I know you more now that I'm listening to this. You are showing your true personality, and that requires guts. He used a different word, but I'm trying to keep this a clean podcast because my daughter listens to it. So that requires guts. Honestly, congratulations. Your accent is lightly addictive. And I'm like, what do you mean by addictive? I didn't understand. Thank you. I'm like, yeah, you have to have guts. Sometimes you realize that your everyday life is stealing your true personality. So I am trying to discover myself again. And so he answers, I like the accent. Your voice sounds great. Very genuine. And this is the funniest part, guys. He's like, it's like listening to Shrek's, the cat in the Shrek the movie, but a female. And then he's like laughing, And I was like, wow, that's hilarious, really. So, I answered, that's the best compliment I've ever received. And I wanted to play, what's the name of the cat? Puss in Boots, no? I wanted to play because I went back to YouTube and listened to him talk, and that was hilarious. And I wanted to play a little bit of it, but, I don't want to get into copyright violations and all that stuff. That gets too complicated. The point is to keep this simple, healthy, and happy. So I wanted to share that with you guys because you will get all kinds of feedback. And you will get the feedback that will not support your enthusiasm. And what I'm here to tell you is it's okay. Just get it, turn the page, and hold on to those people who are going to be your true supporters. And keep reaching out to people because you will be finding more support than you think there is. So that goes for my little message I wanted to get into before jumping in today's conversation. And I wanted to say that because Susy, as I explained earlier to you guys, she was a true supporter before she even knew what this was going to be about. And just hold on to those people, guys. Find them and hold on to them. Let's go into my feature interview with journalist and entrepreneur Susy Solis. All right, everyone, we are ready to start my feature interview with Susy Solis. You heard about her a little bit on the introduction, but I'm going to let her introduce herself. Susy, welcome to One Take. I am really grateful for having you here. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your enthusiasm, because when I talked to you about doing this crazy project, it was just an idea, and you were on board, and you're like, you gave me your card. You're like, just call me whenever you're ready. We're going to do this. And thank you so much, Susy, for that.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm all about people following their dreams and doing things that are outside of their comfort zone. And that's exactly what I've tried to do in my life. And that's what I try and encourage other people to do. So yeah, definitely. I'm excited to be a part of this.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Let's start by telling everyone listening a little bit about yourself. What do you do now and how is it that you got here?
So I am the founder and president of a company called Solis Media Strategies, and I do public relations, get companies and clients publicity. I also do media coaching and media training. I started doing that specifically for law enforcement, but have branched out to small businesses, CEOs, and also professional athletes. And then I also do content strategy, which means I help businesses basically discuss their messaging. What are they presenting to the world? What do they stand for? And that's what I help people kind of figure out. I think when you have a startup, you don't necessarily know exactly what your messaging should be. And that's what I help a lot of companies do. So that's what I do. I came into this after being in the media for basically my entire career. I started off in radio when I was in college, and I worked overnights at a radio station in El Paso, Texas, which is where I'm from. And I was going to school and basically making sure that all of the commercials were running on the air overnight from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. And I always had a goal of being on the air. And so at some point, I was able to actually be on the air on the radio station. So that was a lot of fun. But my ultimate goal was to be a reporter. And at some point, about 3 to 4 years after I started doing radio, there was an opportunity in television news at an NBC affiliate in El Paso for a morning anchor. And that was my first TV job. So I started in television at KTSM in El Paso, Texas. And I basically worked from pretty much about 2:30 a.m. to about 1 p.m. Every day.
That's rough.
Yeah, you know how that schedule is. And it was, honestly, what it really did was it helped me to work on the fly, because there was so much stuff that would happen. Like the wrong video would be showing when I would be talking about something else. And so you really had to be able to ad lib and be able to work on the fly. And that's really what that first job did for me. But from there, in about 2007 is when J-Lo was super popular. And you remember everybody was trying to get Latinas on TV. So yeah. I had a whole bunch of job offers at that time. And Dallas was the biggest market. And my brother already lived here. So I came to Dallas and started working at NBC5 at KXAS as a general assignment reporter. And so I worked there for 4 years, and then I worked at CBS 11 for 4 years, for 3 years actually. But what I noticed when I would do all of these interviews, and I did, hundreds of interviews over the years, is that people, I would talk to some of the smartest people Let's say it was a police chief or a fire chief or somebody who was in a high office, and they're really smart people. And we would be having a conversation about a particular story. But then as soon as the camera turned on, they would freak out. And I would say, it doesn't have to be like this. Like, I can actually help you. Let me tell you what reporters are expecting. Let me tell you what reporters are looking for. And so that was really kind of the seed of where I started to think about maybe I could start my own business, actually doing some media training for these people. And also, as you know, PR people are always pitching you and always trying to get their clients get their clients some publicity. And I learned over the years that there were definitely some good PR people who knew exactly what reporters needed and what they wanted, but there were others who really didn't understand the kind of time constraints that reporters were under, and they didn't understand the elements that were needed for a specific story. And so I then realized, maybe I could do this as well. Maybe I could do PR and really put everything in a little box for a reporter and make it easy for them to turn stories. Because as we know, in this day and age, reporters really have to do a lot of work. And I don't think people realize how much work reporters have to do. So I thought, make it easy for reporters and get them stories that are good, compelling stories. I mean, every day as a reporter, you have to pitch at least 3 stories. And so I know exactly how to pitch stories. And that's why I thought, I could do this for a living for people. I can find an angle for specific companies who are trying to get on the news or get publicity for whatever they're doing. And that's really how I started my business.
And you hit it right in the nail, because as a reporter, that's how we met, and we get hundreds of emails every single day from companies and PR companies pitching us stories. And I can tell you, I read the subject line and I know it has to go, because they really do not know how to approach the television reporter. They're sending information for the generic media, but we really need visuals, and we really need accessibility to the expert or the subject or of the story 5 minutes ago. And that's really hard to get.
Exactly. And that's what I tell my clients, even during my media training, specifically with law enforcement, because they have to work with a lot of reporters who are working in their local media. And I tell them, what you need is you need the expert and you need the poster child. And that's what I do as a publicist, is I make sure that my clients, if it's a business specifically, then I say, okay, we need to have an expert, which is them, to be a part of the story. And they need to be ready for the very tight deadlines that most TV reporters and some print reporters and some radio reporters have. So what I always tell my clients is you need specific elements for your story. Number 1, you need an expert. And number 2, you need a poster child. You need somebody who has utilized your business or whatever you're trying to sell, a real person who can tell a story that can relate to the masses. And so that's what I'm able to do as a PR person, because again, as a reporter, and that's how I continue to think as a PR person, here's what we need to make a good story. And so that's what I do on an everyday basis. And that's how I educate my clients as well, to make sure that they know that if we're going to pitch a story, it has to be something that is going to be that people are going to actually want to know about. And it's got to be something that's compelling.
Now, tell me about the change, the decision to go by yourself. Because when we are working for a company, there's certain things that you can take for granted. You can never take your job for granted, but while you are there, you have benefits, and there's paid vacation, and there's a schedule, and there's a paycheck. When you decide to go on your own, you lose all that. Was that scary?
Oh, it was the scariest thing ever. Really, you kind of have to jump off the cliff. Well, that's what I did. I knew that I had a specific talent and a specific expertise that I could utilize to start a business. And I think when you do start a business and you decide that you're going to go out on your own, you don't realize how much you did take for granted the fact that you would get a paycheck every 2 weeks, and the fact that you had benefits, and the fact that you could go to the doctor whenever you want. When I think the hardest thing for any entrepreneur who is starting is realizing that most businesses aren't on your timeline. So, for example, one time I did a press conference for FC Dallas, and I didn't get paid until 3 months after the actual event.
Wow.
So when you're used to getting paid every 2 weeks, that is certainly not going to happen when you have your own business. And so you really have to, you turn in, your mentality changes, and you realize that you have to take care of your money a lot more. And not only that, but you have to take care of yourself a lot more, especially if you don't have insurance. There are, definitely insurance plans that you can try and buy, but they're really expensive if you're not part of a company. So really, you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of your money, and you really start to realize your limitations as a business owner when you're first starting. And everyone will tell you when you first start a business, cash flow is your biggest issue. And so you really have to, I think that's the biggest lesson becoming an entrepreneur, is figuring out how to be very judicious with your money.
Now tell me about your fears. Go more into your fears, and then tell me, how did you leverage the connections that you already had? I mean, working in this market, Dallas-Fort Worth market, for 7 years, you had so many connections. Tell me about the fears, and then how did you use your connections to be able to get started?
Well, I mean, when I was a reporter, I had always thought to myself, I wouldn't mind being a business owner, but I really thought to myself, how am I going to translate these skills that I've utilized as a reporter into a business owner? I really didn't know how I could transfer them. And so I thought, am I going to get any business? How do I market myself? I mean, figuring out how to start a business in itself is a fear, because you really don't know what you don't know. And you have to ask people who have actually been there and say, hey, can you help me? Because I have no idea what I'm doing. And the other fear is, what am I going to do about money? I mean, when you're used to getting paid every 2 weeks, you never know when you're going to get paid as an entrepreneur. So that's the good thing and the bad thing, because for some people, it's like not a big deal because you're always hustling and you're going to be making those deals all the time. But you know what? It takes a while to get to that point where you're able to learn how to make money. So you said, talk about the fears, and what was the other question?
How did you leverage your connections?
So, before I actually left in the news business, I had already been thinking about this in the back of my mind. And so I already knew that I needed to make the most of my connections and my relationships when I was a reporter, and be able to transfer those once I became a business owner. And that's exactly what I did. When I was a reporter, I spoke to a lot of police chiefs, fire chiefs, people that were in city government, a lot of people that are always going to be dealing with the media. And so I would deal with a lot of these people and see that a lot of them were either scared of the media or they didn't know how to handle it. And so I thought to myself, I can help you. The media doesn't have to be a scary thing as long as you know how to utilize the media. And so when I quit my job in 2014 and I decided to start my business, I literally started emailing all of the police chiefs, fire chiefs, and people in city government that I had already done stories with as a reporter. And I said, hey, here's what I'm doing. I'm doing some media training. Do you think you or your department might be interested in this? And that's exactly how I started my business. And they had known me as a reporter, and they had known that I would do fair stories. They knew that I would ask the tough questions, but I would also be fair in my reporting. And so they trusted me. And so that's what I leveraged when I was trying to pitch them to take my media training classes. And in fact, a public information officer that I worked with quite a bit from Garland Police Department before I left the news, I asked him, what are you going to do when you retire? He was about a year from retiring when I was about to leave the business. And I said, hey, well, do you think that you might want to come and speak to some classes if I do some media training? And before I left, he said, you know what, if you're really serious, let's do it. And so really that was kind of my catalyst. And it was the thing that really said to me, you know what, this is something that's needed and this is something that people want. And so that's really what kind of started me on the path to entrepreneurship.
Awesome. Now, being an entrepreneur, how do you balance work, family, life, hobbies, relax time? Because you're basically on 24/7.
Yeah, and that's definitely the hardest thing, I think, for any entrepreneur. I was talking to my friend the other day. She is also an entrepreneur. And I told her, I really envy the people who, when they're living a normal life, they can actually not think about work. And as an entrepreneur, since you eat what you kill, you're pretty much thinking about work all the time, But personally, I think it's really important to have a balance. And so I definitely set aside time to put my computer away, not answer emails. And I definitely make sure that I have a schedule where I'm not always working, because otherwise that's all you're going to do, because that's all you think about. So I really let people know that, yes, I am definitely available. And I think that's what entrepreneurs, that's how they sell themselves is, look, I'm a small company, so I'm going to be available for you almost whenever you want. But there are definitely times when you need to take a break, you need a mental break, and you have to have that time for yourself. And so I make sure that I have people in place to take my place, quote unquote, when I'm not around, which, trust me, doesn't happen very often because most entrepreneurs are control freaks. So I just make sure that everything is in place, and I'm very candid with all of my clients, and so they know exactly what I'm going to be doing, where I'm going to be, and I try and make sure that I give them access to me. It's just not as much if, for example, I'm on vacation or whatever. But trust me, that doesn't happen very often as an entrepreneur.
So, has this changed from being an employee to being an entrepreneur? Has that had an effect on your personal balance, happiness, contentment, fulfillment? How has that affected you personally?
It's been a huge, huge change. For me specifically, as an employee, I was always the person who was saying, why don't we do this? This makes more sense. And I feel like some of my superiors would be offended by that. And so I was wondering to myself before I became an entrepreneur, why do I have issues with these people who are my bosses? And I realized because I want to be my own boss. So once I became my own boss, the thing is, you really have to rely on yourself. And so I started thinking to myself, my first year in business was, okay, let me learn how to run a business, first of all. My second year of business was trying to focus on what am I good at and let me get paid for that. And once you do that and you figure out what you're really good at, getting paid to do that just feels amazing. And being able to sustain yourself on your specific talents really brings you a lot of freedom. And so for me, it helped me feel like I have so much freedom in my life and I'm able to make choices that maybe a lot of other people aren't able to make. So that freedom is really something that I think a lot of entrepreneurs really look for and they thrive on. And that's definitely the case for me. I feel like I'm able to make those decisions. If a client is unhappy, I can make those changes immediately. If a client is happy, it makes me feel great. And so I'm able to control exactly what I want to do, who I want to work with, and how long I want to work with them. So really that freedom gives you a happiness that you've never felt as an employee. well, a, a freedom that I never felt as an employee. Maybe some people do feel that because they work for some great people. And not that I didn't work for great people, but now I'm really able to help people and see their transformation. When I do media coaching, when people get the light bulb and they see and they understand how the media works, and they say, thank you so much for doing this and for helping me understand how the media works, that for me is payment in itself.
That's awesome. And I can relate to that because sometimes you go to a morning meeting with in the newsroom and you have these ideas and you believe truly that your idea is amazing and you strike out and you get disappointed. And I think as entrepreneurs, having the freedom to pursue an idea that you believe in, even if it fails, having that freedom to go and try to make it happen. And if it didn't happen, then you learn from what happened. What was keeping the idea from being a success, or maybe it just really sucked. But there is a process there where there is a huge opportunity to learn. And I think there's people that are born to be employees, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's people that we are employees, but we know in our hearts that one day what we really want to be is an entrepreneur. And that's where I am right now. I really feel like I have a drive and too many ideas in my head. Many ideas that perhaps don't even belong to my place of employment, but that one day, like this podcast, one day I knew I wanted to do it. And that freedom that I have to explore, and whether this is a total success or not, just going through the process of having an idea, the concept, making it happen, and reaching out to people to share your idea that's now something they can listen to, that's been really huge for me.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing is like, I would think to myself when I was an employee, like, we should be doing this. We should be doing this. Oh, I wish I could do this. And that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur is you can do whatever you want. You control your situation. It's not going to be easy. Trust me. Sustaining yourself and literally that first year of business is probably the hardest you'll ever go through. But once people see that you're consistent and that you're continuing to do what you're doing, they're going to come to you. And that's what I tell all aspiring entrepreneurs is you've got to plant those seeds, and those relationships are so important that you make throughout the years. And I always tell people, it's the police and fire departments that I worked with over the years where I did fair reporting and they knew who I was and they felt like they could trust me. They're the ones who gave me my first opportunity as an entrepreneur. And so for me, it's those relationships, like even relationships that I've had years ago, now I tell them what I'm doing and they'll bring me business now. And so to be able to use your innate skills, the things that you are just good at innately, and to be able to make money on that, and to sustain yourself and to help people, because that's really what I want to do is help people figure out how to deal with the media and how to utilize the media to better themselves or their businesses or their nonprofits or whatever they're trying to do. To be able to do that for people, it's really gratifying. And when people tell you, thank you, you don't expect it, but when you get it, it makes all the difference.
I love it. Now, switching gears a little bit and talking a little bit more about yourself, what inspires Susy Solis?
For me, I've always loved the underdog story. I love people who are hard workers and who are going to do whatever it takes to make their dream happen. I love people who take chances and who do what they're going to do, even if it fails, even if it's not the best idea to do. That's really what inspires me. Along with what I do with Solis Media Strategies, I also am part of a company called Cornbread Hustle. And what we do is we give felons and people in recovery second chances. We give them the opportunity to get jobs, meaningful jobs, and change their lives with a 90-day program. And we teach them about personal growth, entrepreneurship, And to see the changes in the people that we've already affected with Cornbread Hustle has been absolutely amazing. And so that's what I want to do. I mean, what inspires me to continue to do what I do is to help other people get to the point where they're happy with what they're doing in their life. I want to get people to do work that they love to do so that it doesn't feel like a job, because that's how I feel about my jobs.
Yeah, you feel like you're enjoying every moment of it. The day goes by super fast. And at the end of the day, you had fun. It wasn't work.
Exactly, exactly. And so when we help these felons, we're trying to reduce the recidivism rate. And the recidivism rate is about 82% right now. So just to give you a statistic about how much it costs for us to put people in jail, in Tarrant County alone, they spend more than $1 billion a year housing inmates.
Wow.
If we would reduce the recidivism rate by just 1%, it would save taxpayers $5.6 million a year.
That's
and
huge.
we could do a lot with those $5.6 million, I'm sure. I'm sure the police and fire departments would love to have that money to get more patrols and to get more fire trucks out on the streets. And so that's why it's really important to me, because as a reporter, you know, I covered a lot of crimes and I covered a lot of trials. And sometimes people make a mistake and it affects their entire life and often their families and their entire communities. And so I think if you're able to give these people a second chance and give them a job that they truly appreciate and that they truly love, and they never go back to prison, then we're making a difference. And that's what we're trying to do.
I love that, Susy. I think not very many people are given second chances, especially not if you have a criminal background. You know, you really have to struggle to make it. If you get out of jail and you want to turn your life around, you're going to face many more challenges just because of the baggage that you're carrying with you.
Exactly. It's really difficult for these people. I don't think a lot of people really understand what happens. A lot of people go to jail and then literally when they get out, they get $50, a bus ticket. If they're on meds, they get a week's worth of meds, and that's it. Sometimes they'll go to a halfway house. But even when they get to the halfway house, they have really no resources to help them get a job, to help them get a Texas ID, to help them get a driver's license. And so that's why a lot of these guys and women who are in prison end up back in prison. A lot of these people that we've worked with at Cornbread Hustle, they've been in prison for 20 years, 10 years. They don't know how to use a debit card. They don't know everything that the internet has been doing. They don't know how to do a lot of things that we take for granted in what we call the real world. And so, you know, I want to say, what is the statistic? I forgot what the statistic is. But anyway, there's a lot of people. I want to say 1 in 3 Americans have a criminal record. And so that's a third of our workforce. Can we afford for a third of our workforce to not be able to work because they have a criminal record? No, absolutely not. And so that's why it's really important for us to do what we're doing. And we've placed, a lot of people who have recently gotten out of jail in jobs and changed their lives. And we want to continue to do that because there are hundreds of thousands of people who are getting out of jail every single day and they have nowhere to turn.
I love what you guys are doing. And you know what? I'm thinking that if you could help me connect, or if you can arrange the right person, I would love to interview one of those persons that's gone through your help and that has turned their life around, and just hear from their perspective. What is it like, you know, to be able to turn around and have a hand from what you guys are doing? That's awesome. Congratulations. Now, as we move along to wrap it up, are there any books? I love to ask this question. Are there any books that you are currently reading that you would recommend to our audience?
You know, I am definitely a reader. I just read the book 13 Hours. I went to an event where the person who I don't know if you know there was a movie called 13 Hours about everything that happened in Benghazi. And so that's a great book. Definitely made me feel very patriotic. But one of my favorite books all time, just because it's about a person who follows their dream, is The Alchemist.
Yeah.
That is, I honestly have read it like 3 or 4 times just because it always brings me back to being able to go after your dreams and follow the path that you're supposed to be on. I think a lot of times actually we second guess ourselves and we think, no, that's not for me, that's for that person. When in fact, if you can't stop thinking about it, if this is something that you feel like there are signs pointing everywhere and there are things that are happening that are pointing to whatever it is that you should be doing, then you should do it. I think we as people don't trust ourselves and trust our guts. And that's what we need to do. Sometimes we just need to take that chance. For me, when I became an entrepreneur, I thought to myself, you know what, I'm going to do this. And the worst case scenario is I can find a job afterwards. If it doesn't work, if I don't end up making money at what I'm trying to do, then I can find a job. And I think that's true with everyone. Take that chance and do it, because you don't want to be the person who regrets not doing it when it's too late.
Susy, I read that book this summer and I could not stop thinking about follow your heart, follow your heart. And then I ran into you at this event and I asked you, how do you know that you wanted to do this? And you told me, when it keeps you up at night, you know you need to act on it. You told me, if this is keeping you up at night, you need to do it. And it was a busy event. We're like, yeah, well, okay, talk to me later, like call me later, this and that. And that was the end of our brief conversation then. But I kept thinking about it. It's keeping me up at night. Susy said I have to do it. And you are part, many people are part of me doing this podcast. And you are one of those persons that with that tiny comment push me one step closer to making it happen. Thank you for that.
That's amazing. And that's what I'm trying to do, because I'm scared. I was scared just like you. I didn't know what I was going to do. I really had no idea how to run or start a business, but I knew that in my heart, that's what I wanted to do. And so when you meet people who say, hey, I can help you do this or help you do that, and when things start to happen so easily, that just means you're on the right path. And that's what I try and tell people, because I know that everybody has that specific dream. Whenever I talk to people, I always say, what is the craziest thing in your wildest dreams? What would you want to do? And then when they tell me, I try and help them do that, because I feel like everyone should live that way.
And I bet if you ask people, if they really think about it, everyone has an answer for that question. Sometimes we bury it under the daily routine, but if you really scratch the surface, you will get your answer. And many people I know right now, I have it in their minds that they know what we're talking about.
Exactly. And that's the thing is, society tells you should get a corporate job and you should be at a job for this much and you should have a 401k. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. But if there's an inkling in your mind, if you're not totally happy, if you think that you could make a difference, if you have an idea and you want to see if it works, you should do it. If it, like I said, and like I told you, if it's something that you think about all the time and you can't get it out of your head, you should do it, because more often than not, people are going to want to help you do what you want to do. And you'd be surprised when you ask people for help, how fast they are to help you. And that's exactly what I try and do, is tell people and give them the motivation and the confidence that they can actually do it. It's not necessarily going to be the easiest thing. Going out on your own and doing your own thing and making money on your own skills is not easy. But you know what? When you do it and when you do figure it out, it's the most rewarding thing you can ever do.
Well, you cannot see me now because we turned off the video to get the best quality on the audio for this interview. But I have a huge smile from one ear to the other, because That's exactly what I feel and what's happening to me now. I start this, I share it with people, and I've gotten 99% of the feedback has been outstanding. There's been some critical comments that I just listen to and try not to, let them affect me. But I've had people reaching out to me from Twitter, people that don't personally know me. We start a conversation. They end up basically coaching me on how to make a podcast a success. Out of a couple of tweets, I ended up having so much wisdom just because somebody could relate to where I was because they were there one time. And that's one of the beauties of it, getting that feedback from people who are willing to help you. And there's more people that are willing to help you that we even know.
That's exactly right. And that's what I tell people is like, people who have already been there, they know where you've been. They know what you're thinking. They know your fears. They know that you're reluctant to give up your health insurance. They know that you're reluctant to give up your paycheck every 2 weeks, but they also know how rewarding and how great it feels to be able to do your own thing. And that's why they want to push you to do that. And that's why they want to say, hey, I'm going to help you. Let me grab your hand and pull you up and help you do that because it feels so good. And we all need to be able to motivate each other and to help each other follow our dreams.
Susy, I am so honored to have you on. You have really uplifted me, and I am sure that our listeners are feeling that way too. Before we go, where can people find about you, about your business, about ways you can help them? Tell us.
So I'm all over the internet. I mean, you can go to my website at solismediastrategies.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter at Team Susy Solis. And you can find me on Instagram at Susy Solis. And Solis is spelled S-O-U-L-I-S on Instagram. But you know what? If you just Google Susy Solis, Susy-Solis, you'll be able to find me. I definitely always help, budding entrepreneurs. I definitely want to give advice. I can help you, with PR. I can help you with media coaching. And I have a lot of resources in the startup community. So, whatever questions you have, I'm all about building relationships. I'm all about helping people follow their dreams. And I have a big network and I just want to help people. That's basically what I want to do. So I'm really glad that you had me on this. I mean, you and I know we were both journalists, and I know, how difficult it is to work in that industry. It's an all-consuming business. And that's why I think that it's easy for journalists because it's a very, very time-consuming and demanding job. It's easy for journalists to switch into entrepreneurship because entrepreneurship is the same. It's all-consuming. But there's a little bit more freedom and you're in control of the situation, which is the difference between being a journalist and being an entrepreneur. But the skills that you learn as a journalist, you can definitely use them in the business world. And I learned that early on, and that's definitely helped me in my business.
All right, guys. Well, that was it for this interview and this episode. Remember to check out my blog at www.yezminthomas.com, take 7, to learn more about Susy, to find all the links to her social media channels and website. If you want to connect with her, make sure to check that out. And don't forget to connect with me via Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram. You can find me on those channels by searching the handle Yezmin Thomas, YEZMIN THOMAS. You can also like my Facebook fan page at facebook.com/YezminThomasblog, or you can send me an email at podcast@YezminThomas.com. And if you need any support with any projects, if you want honest feedback, if you want ask questions, if you're trying to launch your podcast, whatever it is you want to do, if I can be of help, if I can serve you in any way, you make sure you reach out to me, podcast@YezminThomas.com or through social media. And if you are a business owner and you're seeking for opportunities to advertise in podcasts, I'll invite you to consider becoming a supporter of One Take. If you want to serve our audience, and if you have a message or a product that can inspire us, make our life simpler, healthier, and happier, One Take can be the place for you. If you are interested, get a hold of me, and as long as your message aligns with the purpose of One Take and my personal values, I would love to discuss opportunities with you to support each other and, most importantly, to serve our audience. This is all I have for you guys today, and I sure hope you've enjoyed this. Until the next time, remember, keep it simple and embrace the positive people in your life. I'll talk to you guys on the next take.